If you're doing everything right for your heart but still feeling exhausted, struggling with cold hands and feet, or experiencing unexplained brain fog, there's a reason, and it has nothing to do with your age. I'm Dr. Ethan Scott, cardiovascular specialist, and over the past decade working with patients across 15 states, I've discovered something that changed how I practice medicine. The problem isn't that your arteries are getting older. The problem is that nobody taught you the 24-hour cycle your blood vessels desperately need to stay clean and open. In my clinic, I've tracked over 4,000 patients who followed conventional heart advice perfectly, took their medications religiously, avoided bad foods, exercised regularly, and still ended up with progressive arterial narrowing. But when I analyzed their daily routines hour by hour, I found a pattern so consistent it was almost eerie. They were all missing the same critical window. What I'm about to share isn't theory. It's a protocol I've tested with real people, real blockages, real ultrasound results, and the best part is, you can prove it works in just one single day. Let me tell you about Margaret Chen, a woman who changed my entire approach to vascular health. She was 71 years old when she first walked into my office, the kind of patient every doctor loves, organized, compliant, meticulous about her health. She had a binder with all her test results going back 12 years, blood pressure logs, medication schedules, food diaries. She walked 3 miles every morning before breakfast, took her statin at exactly 8 in the evening, never touched fried food, and measured her portions with a kitchen scale. Her husband had died from a stroke 5 years earlier, and she was determined not to follow the same path. But here's what terrified her. Despite doing everything by the book, her latest carotid ultrasound showed increased plaque compared to the year before. Her cardiologist had suggested adding another medication, maybe even considering a procedure soon. When I asked her to walk me through a typical day, she described her routine with pride. Wake up at 5:30, exercise immediately, shower, coffee with oatmeal, work in her garden until lunch, light sandwich, afternoon reading, early dinner at 5, medications at 8, bed by 9:30. It sounded perfect, disciplined, exactly what we tell patients to do. But then I asked her one specific question that changed everything. I said, "Margaret, between the time you finish dinner and the time you wake up, that's almost 12 and a half hours. What happens to your blood during that time?" She looked at me, confused. "What do you mean, what happens?" "Nothing happens. I'm sleeping." And that, right there, was the problem. Let me explain exactly what happens to your arteries during those long overnight hours. When you stop eating and drinking for extended periods, especially 12 to 14 hours, your blood gradually becomes more viscous, thicker. It's a natural physiological response to fasting. Your body pulls water from your bloodstream to maintain other critical functions. Meanwhile, your blood pressure drops during deep sleep, which is normally healthy, but when combined with thicker blood, it creates the perfect environment for plaque deposits to stick and accumulate. Think of it like a slow-moving river during a drought. The water level drops, it flows more slowly, and sediment starts settling on the riverbed instead of being carried downstream. That's happening in your arteries every single night. Between 2 and 6 in the morning, when your blood pressure is at its lowest and your blood is at its thickest, that's when the most damage occurs. The plaque that was floating harmlessly during the day, when you were moving and hydrated and your blood was flowing vigorously, now has the chance to adhere to your arterial walls. Margaret's follow-up tests 3 months later told the story. Her plaque hadn't just stopped growing, it had actually reduced by 18%. Her energy came back. The cold sensation in her feet disappeared. She told me she felt like she'd turned back a clock she thought was permanent. Her daughter called me crying, saying, "I have my mom back. She's gardening again, she's traveling, she's living." And all we did was fix the overnight void. That 12-hour gap she thought was harmless rest was actually 12 hours of arterial deterioration. She had been punishing her circulation without knowing it, every single night for years. Now here's what most people don't realize, and this is critical. Margaret's story isn't unique, it's the norm. If you're over 50 and you're following traditional meal timing, you're almost certainly creating this same overnight disaster. And that's just the first mistake. The first mistake is treating nighttime like it doesn't count for your circulation. Most people eat their last meal between 5 and 7 in the evening, then consume nothing except maybe some water until breakfast the next morning. 12, 13, sometimes 14 hours of complete fasting. It seems responsible. It seems like you're giving your digestive system a rest. It even aligns with popular intermittent fasting advice. But here's what actually happens during those hours, and I want you to pay very close attention because this mechanism is happening in your body right now if you ate dinner early tonight. Let me explain exactly what happens. Around 3 hours after your last meal, your body enters a post-absorptive state. Your insulin levels drop, which is fine, but your blood also begins concentrating. By hour 6, roughly midnight if you ate at 6 in the evening, your plasma volume has decreased by approximately 8 to 12%. Your blood is noticeably thicker. By hour 9, around 3 in the morning, you're in the danger zone. Your blood viscosity has increased by up to 20% compared to when you were awake and active. Now combine that with your blood pressure, which drops by 10 to 20% during deep sleep. You have thick, slow-moving blood trying to navigate through millions of tiny vessels. The smaller arteries, the ones feeding your brain, your heart, your kidneys, they're struggling. Plaque particles that were suspended during the day, kept moving by vigorous blood flow, now drift toward the vessel walls like dust settling in still air. They stick, they accumulate, they oxidize, they trigger inflammation. And this happens silently, night after night, year after year. Especially between 2 and 6 in the morning, your body is in its most vulnerable state. This is when most heart attacks happen. This is when most strokes occur. Not because of what you did during the day, but because of what you didn't do to protect yourself overnight. I had a patient, Thomas Brennan, 64 years old, retired firefighter, strong as an ox during the day, who woke up at 4:15 one morning with crushing chest pain. Emergency angiogram showed a 90% blockage in his left anterior descending artery. When we talked afterward, he told me he'd had an early dinner at 5:30 the previous evening because he'd heard eating late was bad for you. He'd done everything right, except he'd left his arteries unprotected for over 10 hours. But even if you fix the overnight fasting problem, there's something else destroying your arterial health, and most people do this every single morning thinking they're being healthy. The second mistake is what you do immediately after waking up. You probably start your day with exercise, maybe a morning walk, maybe some stretching, maybe a full workout. It seems logical. It seems like the perfect way to boost circulation and get your blood flowing. But here's the problem. After 10 to 12 hours of overnight dehydration and blood thickening, your circulation is already compromised when you open your eyes. Your blood is at its most viscous point of the entire day. And what do most people do? They immediately demand peak performance from that compromised system. Here's what no one tells you. When you exercise on dehydrated, viscous blood, you're not cleaning your arteries. You're damaging them. Let me walk you through the mechanics. Exercise increases your heart rate and blood pressure, which is normally beneficial. But when your blood is thick and sluggish, that increased pressure forces that viscous blood through your vessels with tremendous shear force. Think of trying to push cold honey through a narrow straw versus pushing warm water. The honey creates friction, resistance, turbulence. That turbulence damages the delicate endothelial lining of your arteries. Those microscopic injuries become sites where plaque can attach. You're literally creating the conditions for arterial disease while thinking you're preventing it. The right sequence matters desperately. Your body needs rehydration before exertion. Between 6 and 8 in the morning, before any physical activity, your blood needs to return to proper viscosity. I recommend drinking 16 to 20 ounces of water, room temperature, within 15 minutes of waking. Not coffee, not tea, pure water. Give it 20 to 30 minutes to absorb into your bloodstream. Then exercise. The difference is remarkable. I had a patient, Linda Kowalski, 58, marathon runner, who couldn't understand why her cholesterol kept climbing despite running 40 miles a week. She was exercising on dehydrated blood every single morning, creating endothelial damage faster than her body could repair it. When she switched to hydrating first, exercising second, her inflammatory markers dropped by 43% in 6 weeks. You could fix both of those mistakes perfectly, but if you're making this next error with your morning routine, you're still sabotaging your arteries without realizing it. The third mistake is what you choose to break your fast with, and this one surprises everyone. Most health-conscious people start their day with fruit, fresh juice, a smoothie, a bowl of berries, maybe an apple. It seems like the epitome of healthy eating, natural, vitamin-rich, antioxidant-packed. But here's the truth that is rarely explained. When you break an extended fast with high sugar foods, even natural sugar from fruit, you trigger a massive insulin spike in a body that's been in fasting mode for 12 hours. That insulin surge doesn't just affect your blood sugar. It dramatically impacts your vascular system. Let me explain exactly what happens. After an overnight fast, your cells are extremely insulin sensitive. They're hungry for glucose. When you flood your system with fruit sugar on an empty stomach, your pancreas releases a disproportionate amount of insulin to handle it. That insulin spike causes several problems simultaneously. First, it triggers inflammation in your arterial walls. Second, it promotes the storage of any circulating fats as arterial plaque rather than burning them for energy. Third, it causes a rapid blood sugar crash within 90 minutes, which triggers your liver to release stored fats back into your bloodstream. Those fats, combined with the inflamed, sticky arterial lining, create perfect conditions for plaque accumulation. You've essentially turned your healthy breakfast into an arterial disaster. This is especially dangerous between 7 and 10 in the morning when your cortisol levels are naturally elevated. Cortisol plus insulin plus fructose creates what I call the triple threat to arterial health. The combination promotes oxidative stress and endothelial dysfunction more aggressively than any single factor alone. I've measured this in patients using postprandial lipid tests, checking their blood 2 hours after breakfast. Those who ate fruit first showed triglyceride spikes 3 times higher than those who ate protein first. 3 times higher, and those elevated triglycerides stay in circulation, damaging vessels for hours. I remember Rachel Martinez, 66, who prided herself on her healthy smoothie every morning. Spinach, banana, blueberries, almond milk. She drank it right after her morning yoga at 7. Her lipid panels kept worsening year after year. When we tested her blood at 9 in the morning, 2 hours after her smoothie, her triglycerides were off the charts. We switched her breakfast to eggs and vegetables, moved the smoothie to mid-afternoon with some healthy fat added, and her next lipid panel showed a 52% improvement in triglycerides. Same foods, different timing, different combination. Completely different arterial impact. However, even correcting all of that won't save you if you're making this fourth mistake during the most critical hours of the day. The fourth mistake is what you do, or more accurately, what you don't do, between noon and 4 in the afternoon. This is the window when your arteries have their best chance to clean themselves naturally, but most people completely waste it. Here's why this time period matters so much. Between noon and 4, your circulation is at peak performance. Your blood pressure is optimal, your hydration should be good if you've been drinking water, your digestive system is active, and your body temperature is elevated, which keeps blood flowing smoothly. This is when your body's natural cleaning mechanisms work best. Your liver is processing fats, your kidneys are filtering waste, your endothelial cells are releasing nitric oxide to keep vessels flexible and clean. But what do most people do during this golden window? They sit, they work at a desk, they drive, they watch television, they remain completely sedentary during the 4 hours when movement would do the most good. Let me explain exactly what happens when you stay still during peak circulation hours. Even though your blood is flowing well, without muscle movement, it's not flowing optimally through your peripheral vessels. Your leg muscles, in particular, act as a secondary pump for your circulatory system. When you walk, climb stairs, or even just stand and shift your weight, those muscles squeeze your veins and arteries, propelling blood back toward your heart and preventing pooling. Without that muscle activity, blood flow in your lower extremities slows by up to 40%. That slowdown has immediate consequences. Plaque particles that could be flushed away during active circulation instead settle in the peripheral arteries of your legs, your feet, eventually your kidneys and brain. Even worse, the lack of movement during peak hours means you miss the optimal window for exercise-induced nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is your artery's best friend. It keeps them dilated, flexible, and resistant to plaque adhesion. But your body produces the most nitric oxide in response to movement during the afternoon hours when your core temperature is highest. If you're sitting still from noon to 4, you're missing your daily opportunity to naturally coat your arterial walls with this protective substance. I think about Harold Winston, 73, retired accountant, who spent every afternoon in his recliner reading the newspaper from 1 to 4. Perfect timing for relaxation, terrible timing for his arteries. When we got him up and moving during those hours, just walking around his house every 30 minutes, doing light stretching, maybe some gardening, his peripheral circulation improved so dramatically that his intermittent claudication, the leg pain that had plagued him for 3 years, disappeared completely within 8 weeks. 8 weeks. just by moving during the right hours. Even the healthiest habits won't save you from this final mistake, and this one is what truly destroys arterial health over the long term. The fifth mistake is the mindset that your arteries only need attention when something feels wrong. This is the most dangerous belief of all because arterial disease is silent until it becomes catastrophic. Most people operate on a crisis model. They eat well when they feel bad. They exercise when they get a scare. They take their medications when they remember. But here's what very few people understand. Your arteries don't heal during moments of perfection. They heal during consistency. A single day of perfect habits does nothing if it's surrounded by weeks of neglect. But a single day of perfect habits repeated for 30 days creates measurable change. 60 days creates reversal. 90 days creates transformation. The psychological mistake is treating vascular health like a project with an end point instead of a rhythm that needs to continue for life. I see this constantly. Patients get a bad test result, they panic, they're perfect for 6 weeks, their numbers improve, and then they gradually slide back into old patterns. They think they've fixed the problem. But arterial plaque doesn't work that way. It accumulates during periods of neglect and slowly reduces during periods of care. If you're inconsistent, you're fighting a losing battle. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, net loss. Let me explain exactly what happens with on and off commitment. Every time you go through a period of poor habits, inflammatory damage, thick blood, sedentary days, you're creating new plaque deposits and destabilizing existing ones. When you then switch to good habits temporarily, you might stabilize what's there, maybe reduce it slightly, but you don't undo the new damage you created. Then when you slip back into poor habits, you're building on a worse foundation than before. Over years, this yo-yo pattern leads to progressive disease despite occasional periods of good behavior. The math simply doesn't work in your favor. I remember Stuart Davenport, 69 engineer, very logical mind, who approached his arterial health like a project. He'd be perfect for 2 months, see improvement, then coast for 4 months thinking he'd earned a break. His ultrasounds over 5 years showed a clear pattern. Slight improvement, then worse than before, slight improvement, then worse than before. Net progression despite periods of excellent behavior. When I finally convinced him that this required permanent rhythm, not temporary projects, everything changed. Within 1 year of consistent daily habits, his arterial age, measured by vascular stiffness, decreased by 11 years. 11 years younger. Same person, same genetics, just consistent rhythm instead of sporadic effort. Here's the good news, and pay close attention because this is important. None of these 5 mistakes requires surgery, expensive medication, or a radical change in your life. All of them can be corrected with simple adjustments you can start today, right now, this very moment. I've helped thousands of patients reverse these problems without ever setting foot in an operating room. What you need is knowledge and commitment, and you're already halfway there just by watching this. The protocol I'm about to give you is the same one I use with my private patients. It's been tested, refined, and proven effective through actual clinical results. First action, protect your overnight circulation. Here's the protocol that changes everything. Your last meal should be no earlier than 7 in the evening. If you normally eat at 5 or 6, shift it later. Between 8 and 9:30 in the evening, drink 8 to 12 ounces of water. Not a huge amount that will disrupt your sleep, but enough to maintain blood viscosity overnight. If you wake up during the night to use the bathroom, which many people over 50 do, drink another 4 to 6 ounces. You're replacing what you're losing. This simple change keeps your blood flowing smoothly through the most dangerous hours. Within 1 week, most patients report sleeping better and waking with more energy. Within 2 weeks, morning brain fog disappears. Within 4 weeks, we see measurable improvements in morning blood pressure readings. Second action, fix your morning sequence. The moment you wake up, before anything else, drink 16 to 20 ounces of room temperature water. Keep it on your nightstand. Drink it before you check your phone, before you get out of bed. Give your body 20 to 30 minutes to absorb that hydration. Then do your morning routine. Shower, get dressed, whatever you normally do, then exercise. This sequence ensures your blood is properly fluid before you ask it to perform. The difference in how you feel during and after exercise is remarkable. Patients describe it as night and day. Third action, restructure your breakfast. Your first food of the day should be protein and healthy fat. Eggs, Greek yogurt with nuts, avocado, cottage cheese, smoked salmon. Something that provides sustained energy without spiking insulin. Save fruit for later in the day, ideally mid-afternoon, And always pair it with protein or fat to slow the sugar absorption. This single change reduces arterial inflammation measurably. We track it with high-sensitivity C-reactive protein tests, and the reduction is consistently 30 to 50% within 6 weeks. Fourth action, move during peak hours. Between noon and 4 in the afternoon, set a timer for every 30 minutes. When it goes off, stand up and move for 3 to 5 minutes. Walk around, do some stretches, go up and down stairs, anything that activates your leg muscles. If you can take a proper 20-minute walk sometime during this window, even better. But at minimum, break up any extended sitting. This keeps your peripheral circulation active during the hours when it matters most. The impact on overall vascular health is profound. Fifth action, commit to the 24-hour rhythm. This isn't a diet you go on and off. This isn't a challenge you complete. This is how you live now, every single day. No breaks, no cheating, no, I'll start again Monday. Your arteries respond to consistency over time, not perfection in moments. Track your daily habits with a simple checklist. Water timing, morning sequence, breakfast type, afternoon movement, evening hydration. Check them off every day. That physical act of checking creates accountability and builds the rhythm into your identity. Here's your 7-day protocol to prove this works. Day 1, start all 5 actions immediately. Don't wait for Monday, don't prepare, just begin today. Track how you feel when you wake up tomorrow, your energy at noon, your mental clarity at 4 in the afternoon. Day 2, continue all actions, pay attention to your sleep quality and whether you're waking up less groggy. Day 3, notice whether your legs feel lighter, whether your hands and feet are warmer. These are signs of improved circulation. Day 4, you should start feeling noticeably different. More energy, better focus, less afternoon fatigue. Day 5, the rhythm should be feeling more natural, less like effort. Day 6, assess objectively. Is your morning blood pressure better? Is your resting heart rate lower? Are you sleeping through the night more easily? Day 7, commit. If you've seen and felt the changes, and you will have, make the decision that this is permanent. Keep a simple journal. Write down 3 things every day. How did your legs feel when you woke up? How was your energy at 2 in the afternoon? Did you complete all 5 actions? This gives you objective data instead of just hoping things are better. Most of my patients report noticeable differences within 3 days, measurable differences within 2 weeks, life-changing differences within 60 days. Which of these 5 mistakes did you recognize you're making right now? Be honest with yourself. No judgment here, just awareness. The overnight fasting, the dehydrated morning exercise, the fruit-first breakfast, the sedentary afternoons, the on and off commitment. Most people are making at least 3 of them. Some are making all 5. That's okay. You did the best with the information you had, but now you know, and now you have the responsibility to act. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. Don't leave it for tomorrow. Today, right now, you can do 3 things. Drink a full glass of water. Decide what time you'll eat dinner tonight to protect your overnight circulation. Set a timer on your phone for every 30 minutes this afternoon to remind yourself to move. 3 simple actions in the next hour that start changing your arterial health immediately. Not next week, not after you finish watching videos, now. Share this with someone you love, your spouse who complains about cold feet, your brother who had a stent placed last year, your friend who's on 3 blood pressure medications. You might save someone from a heart attack that hasn't happened yet. You might give someone back 10 years of healthy life. That's worth 60 seconds of your time to send this video. I'm Dr. Ethan Scott, cardiovascular specialist, and my mission is to provide information that saves lives before crisis hits. Your arteries have been working for you every second of every day since you were born. It's time to work for them. Take care of yourself, commit to the rhythm, and I'll see you in the next video.